I didn't know 2014 Rams came with a Carolina lean. Did you? Do my eyes deceive me, or is the back end of this truck lower than the front end? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is lower than it should be. Maybe it's the constant bird poop on it that's causing it to sink. I don't think so. Yeah, the suspension is down for sure. Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Earl's Classic Cars, where I wish we were working on classic cars, but we're working on our daily driver classic truck here, our 2014 Ram. As you can tell from the intro there, we've got something going on with the suspension that started well over a year ago. I noticed that the suspension was not staying up. I thought it was the cold weather and stuff like that, but instead it would rise up, and then you come out the next morning or a couple days later and it looks like this, like it's got a factory installed Carolina lean kit on it or something. Not something that looks good on a 2014 Ram, and certainly not something that I wanted. But that's what we've got going on. I took it up to a shop last summer and had them install some airbags because, that's one thing I did not want to do myself. But that wasn't the problem, and you would think they would have figured that out and told me instead of just going ahead and installing the airbags. But dummy me, you take parts to somebody, they're going to put parts on for you, right? And charge you for it. And it didn't fix the problem. So we're going to take the right wheel off of this truck and get to the air compressor, which is behind the inner fender, and figure out if we can figure out where the air leak is that's causing the compressor, or causing the air to go out and the compressor to have to run overtime. And what's the other aspect of it running overtime? Well, let me show you. Of course, after the truck runs for a little bit and the air compressor lifts the suspension, it kind of gives the look of an 86 Chevy C10 with a kind of the forward lean. That's not what we want. And that's not what this truck should be. So again, we're gonna have to, doesn't look quite as bad right here in the grass on the left side, but you could definitely see it there on the right side. Like I said, it kind of gives it that forward lean like it's an 86 Chevy, that thing over there. And of course, that one's got an excuse. It's the way they built those things back then. But this is supposed to be level, and it's not level. Anyway, let's dig into it and figure out what's going on. Guys, in order to get to the air compressor, it's just like that inner liner on the front left side that we were taking off the other day. Got these 8mm bolts right along the fender flare, which help hold the inner liner in as well. So as soon as we take those off, we should be able to get this inner liner out of the way and get to the air compressor, maybe start to diagnose what's going on. Another one of those times where you can check other things when you're back here and see that we still have a good amount of brake shoes left. And so we won't have to be doing those anytime soon, and that's good with everything else we've got going on these days. I found out from going up there to see my son in Canada this year, look what's hiding up underneath the inner fender liner here. A bunch of salt. That's really great. I guess that's why a lot of times when we were out there to see cars that lived up there, if they didn't have this fender flare on there, behind there, the metal in the truck bed was rusting, which is probably what's going to happen to ours if we don't clean all this up and get it out of there. So another good reason to take this apart and look for the problem with the air compressor. But while we're in there, we're going to clean up the underside under here and get any and all salt out of there, because we don't want our truck bed rusting out. You also have to take this panel off that's behind the inner liner. There's a screw there, and then there's a screw on the underside here that holds it to the bottom of the rear fender, quarter fender. And then you can get complete access to the air compressor system and hopefully find out what is going on. This looks like the brain and everything. The compressor's back here. Some lines and everything. We may have to do a little research first, figure out what the heck we're doing here. Yep, because that's the bank where it all comes together and then goes out to the different left rear, right front, right rear, right, left front. And that says out, that says P. I don't know if that means power, but it looks like a line, not a power line. But somewhere along here, there is an air leak. And it wasn't the airbags after all. But the good thing is we won't have to worry about them wearing out anytime soon since they were replaced not too long ago. But as you can tell here, keeps going down on the bump stops there. See if I can get you a closer look. Keeps resting down the bump stops at night. Of course, you're going to see that over time, but if it was staying up, that should be more dust covered than it is. That just tells you that it's leaking out until it hits the bump stops. So I did some research before I got involved in this thing. Once I got this all apart, I decided to look up a few things and see what could be some of the places to look. Of course, they said one video showed pulling up the airbag here, this cover, and spraying it and looking for leaks. Another said taking this zip tie strap off the top here and pulling it down and spraying along there while putting it in entry-exit mode. And if it does that on entry-exit mode, that means your bag is leaking at the top, which means either way, you need a new bag, which I hope I don't need a new bag since these are new bags as of last year, but we'll see. Another thing they said was these placed here on the meter block, where these fittings are right here, where you put nitrogen and other things in there, well, nitrogen, and it could be leaking there. Back in here are the air tanks themselves, and then fittings there could be leaking. So those are the most common places to look. And I guess we're gonna get some soapy water and test all these things. I think I'm gonna start here first. Again, knowing that those are new airbags, I wanna probably do that last. I'm gonna look here first. I'm going to get up under here. I may have to drop the spare tire to get a good look at those air tanks under there. And if that's what we got to do to hunt this leak down, that's what we're going to do. Our culprit right there. We sprayed in this area first with these ports and didn't really see anything. Started messing, took the tire down here. Started messing with the air tanks back there. Trying to spray back there, didn't see anything. And then I noticed, oh, there's a lot of foam right there. So what could that possibly be? And sure enough, it's right there. It's leaking right here, this metering block, or this fitting anyway. I'm gonna look and see if that's something that can be sealed up, or if we just gotta go ahead and replace the whole thing. But that's the source of our leak right there. Wish I'd known that before I had the airbags replaced. That's okay. At least I know it's not the airbags this time. Air compressor is starting to react to the leak. Starting to make some noise. Of course, I'm not sure I caught it, but I tried. That's what you start to hear when it's losing the pressure and everything. Eventually the compressor will try to come back on to make up for it. You can see up in here where I sprayed too with the fittings and everything, and there doesn't appear to be any bubbling or anything going on, so it appears to be just that one port on the metering block there for the system. So I guess we're going to look at replacing that. And hopefully we won't have any more problems. Frothing up there, look at that. Pretty consistent leak right there. I'd say that's enough overnight to then have this suspension sitting on the ground. And I guess because of that, I am concerned that even after I get that fixed, is it going to ride level, or is it still going to overinflate in the back? And maybe that's a symptom of the air compressor sucking in regular air, and that's what we have in the tanks, or it's just constantly trying to overcompensate for this slow leak here and filling up so it doesn't have to come on too often. I don't know, is it that smart? Anyway, we're going to replace that metering block and see if that doesn't take care of the problem. Went ahead and ordered the part to replace this reservoir manifold, which was going to cost $164, and they were delayed in getting it. They didn't have it themselves, but I did a little bit of research and found out this valve, which is very similar, if not the same, as what you do for air conditioner. You can take this out and check for an O-ring, see if the O-ring is damaged or leaking, or replace the O-ring. You can also put some thread tape around the threads, certain kind of thread tape, of course, and see if that doesn't fix this leak and save yourself $164. So glad I looked at that. I canceled the part because they weren't going to have it in time anyway. So we're going to go with this experiment first. It says, of course, to, make sure all the air is back in the tanks and stuff. But with this thing leaking out, I don't assume there's any air in this tank at the moment. And it's also down on the bump stops because it leaked out. And we're going to go ahead and try to pop this out of here and see if we can't do a little DIY fix this thing, get it back on the road. And if it works, I'll take it somewhere and get the air evacuated out of the tank and refill it with nitrogen so we don't have that moisture in there and have any rust going on, which probably is already happening since this has been going on for a while, but we're gonna give it our best shot. All right, guys, we finally found the right fitting. It's a 15 millimeter, not 17 like my research told me. And I did try to tighten it first to see if that would help, but it was as tight as it was gonna go. In fact, it may have started to round it off just a hair. I didn't tighten it hardly at all. So I didn't mash on it or anything. But I've backed it out a little bit. I can start to hear the air. Hopefully it's just the air coming out of this one tank. Could be all the nitrogen that's left too, but we're gonna let that seep out of there slowly. You don't wanna take that fitting out with it under pressure. So we're gonna let that pressure get out of there slowly by itself. And then we will go ahead and take it out, check the O-ring, replace the O-ring, maybe put a little bit of thread sealer around it, put that back in there and see if that doesn't solve our problem and save us some money. All right, guys, so we did get the fitting out of there, and everything looks pretty good in there. Taking a look at the thing itself, it looks okay overall. I don't see anything wrong with the threads or anything, but the O-ring, you can see a little bit of road salt and dirt and everything in there. So maybe that was causing the leak around it. And I think I've got an O-ring that will fit this. So we're gonna go ahead, try to change that out. Like I said, we're gonna put a little thread seal around there and put this baby back in, see if that doesn't cure our problem. We'll do the old soap test to find out, soapy water test. Wish us luck. Well, wouldn't you know it, the one that I have, I've got all these O-rings. Do you think I have another that's this size and this thickness? No. Closest one I've got is this. That's too thick. Doesn't compare to this. I'm assuming the one that was on there was right, even though it was kind of loose and going around there, but maybe it was supposed to. So I think what I'm gonna do, I inspected this O-ring really closely. I don't see anything wrong with it. So I'm thinking maybe it's a combination of some dirt buildup and things like that in here. Maybe a little vibration, who knows. I'm gonna clean this all up, put a little bit of the gasket sealer around it. And what I'm gonna use is this water pump and thermostat housing gasket maker. Very similar to what I saw in my research. And so just put a thin layer of that around there and see if that doesn't seal up that little bit of eye leak eye leak, I'm looking at it, eye irritation warnings. Little bit of air leak we were seeing, and maybe that'll be all we need to do. Won't that be nice if that's the easiest fix? We'll see. Well, we got it all cleaned up. Looks a whole lot better. The more I looked at it, the more I could see there was road salt and stuff in the threads. I'd like to blame it on those roads in Kingston, Ontario, where my son was, but in reality, they put salt on the roads here in Middle Tennessee too, and this was happening before he ever went to Kingston, so can't blame it on that. Of course, I'm sure the salty roads in Kingston didn't help it any. And I also cleaned up the O-ring. For this, I just took I wanted to use a soft bristle brush, but I couldn't find one, but I took a metal bristle brush and gently did it. Didn't want to scratch the surface and cause any more mating problems that could cause more leaks. And got out of there, and then I took a wet Blue Shop paper towel with some bottled water and wiped it all down, got everything else out of there. And that's what I did with this too. Just took a wet Blue Shop paper towel, that doesn't disintegrate like regular paper towels or a tissue would, and soaked that in water and rubbed this O-ring around in it to get that salt off of there. And again, it's still nice and supple. I don't see any problems with it, so we're going to just put it back on here like so. There you go. It's all on there now. We're going to put a little bit of that sealer, gasket maker on there for water pumps and stuff. No, don't want to put a lot, just enough on there around the threads. You don't want to goop it or anything, have it get in this area and cause an interference there. But we're going to put just a little bit on there, pop this baby back in and see if that doesn't fix our problem. We got the gasket maker on there. How'd we get it on there without getting it on the O-ring? We did get it on the O-ring. I just wiped it off real quick with a paper towel, but we're going to pop this in real quick for this stuff starts to solidify. All right, so just like that, we've got it back in there. We're going to give it a minute for that sealer to solidify. Of course, it's not supposed to solidify. It's non-setting. That's what you want. You want a non-setting gasket maker, so it'll come off again if we needed to without any problems. But hopefully has sealed up that little leak that was around the base of the port there, and not the Schrader valve. There's nothing to do with that, but it was right there around the base, as you saw earlier in the video. So hopefully, like I said, that's going to solve our problem. We'll start to air this thing back up in just a couple of minutes and see what we got. Yeah, I also noticed that since this thing's been down on the bump stop so many times, look at the rubber stop pad there between the axle and the bump stop. Yep, one more thing to do on this 278,000 mile truck, but that's cheaper than a car payment, or in this case, a truck payment. Okay, so we started it up. We pushed on the buttons here to raise the suspension, and took a minute, but now it's saying it's raising, so I imagine the tank had to kind of fill itself back up with the ambient air, unfortunately. But we'll see if it raises it up, and then most importantly, holds, or if we still have a leak. We'll test that with some soapy water here in just a little bit. Well, it's definitely raised it up. As you can see, the suspension's up off the bump stop now, and airbag is inflated. It was down before, and that little thing is holding so far. But now, time to do the soapy water test. Guys, here we go. The soap and water test. Soapy water. Let's see if there's any bubbles. So far, not seeing any bubbles. We'll give it a chance here. Give it a minute and check in on it. This is the last time you could see all the bubbles starting to come out of it. The air, that is, because of the bubbles. I'm not mistaken. It's only been a couple minutes, but this is kind of looking like success here. I hate these flashlights that come on. You have to push a button twice to keep them on. Anyway, that looks like we might be having some success here. How about that? Well, you know what? The real test will be overnight, because once I leave this truck sitting out, that's usually when it happens, is the slow leak overnight, and then we'll find out for sure if we fixed it, if the suspension is up and riding at the right height. Looking at this cap, look at all this road salt and everything that got inside of there. It's no wonder it eventually made its way around that valve or port and got in there and probably created some issues there with the seal on that port and caused the thing to start leaking. That's not good. So if you live somewhere where you have road salt and stuff, it might be a good idea, if your suspension's not leaking, to take these caps off, clean out your ports. Don't take them off, of course, if you don't need to, but just clean around them the best you can, help dissolve and get rid of some of that salt so it doesn't eventually make its way into your port and cause you to have a suspension in your very expensive air ride suspension in your 2014 Ram, in our case, or whatever year your Ram is, and help keep it on the road. Man, I am just hoping that this was simply the fix that we needed, and we didn't have all those other expensive repairs or diagnostics like a lot of you do out there. So sometimes it's the simple things. Hopefully in our case it was this time. Okay, so we get to record this twice because I didn't know I didn't have my camera going, but yeah, I went ahead and sprayed some soapy water on this other port as well. I think I did it earlier in the video, but if not, I'm doing it now. I don't see any bubbles bubbling up on that one. This one's still not bubbling, so we're looking good. And I'm gonna go ahead and clean both the caps. I already cleaned this one cap here. Look how much better that looks compared to this one that I just took off. Yeah, get that residue, salt residue and everything out of there, so none of that makes its way into the ports. Why do I keep forgetting to push the record button? Anyway, as I was saying, we've got our caps back on over our ports, all cleaned up and everything. Everything looks good, no bubbling going on. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna leave the inner fender off for the rest of this day. We're gonna put the wheel back on because we got some things to do with this truck, ride it around, test out our radiator, make sure it's not leaking, which so far it's not. And then if the suspension's looking right tomorrow morning, hasn't sagged back down, we'll put this inner liner back on and call it done. Good morning, guys. Well, it's the day after the day before, which makes it today. And what's the update on the Ram, on the air suspension repair? Looks level to me. Doesn't look sunk down in the back like it's got the Carolina lean. And it doesn't look like it has the the Chevy C10 square body forward lean like it was having before when it was overcompensating for the air pressure loss in the back. So, is it fixed? I think it is. We're going to double check under there to see if it's resting on the bump stops or not. But my first impression is we may have fixed it, and it was simply a leak around one of the ports in the reservoir manifold. Man, I hope I got that lucky. Here's a look from the backside. Doesn't look like it's sitting down on its bump stops. Well guys, we checked under there. It is on the bump stops, but it's not like it was before, where it was just sunk down in the back and the front was still up. That's usually what I was seeing every day. It's level. I've had this before with the truck since I've owned it, that in the morning, if it hasn't been riding or you got out on exit, it will come down. But then when you get going in the morning, it will come back up normally and not have any problems at all. So I call that a win. I think we have the problem fixed. And if it doesn't, I'll let you know in a future video, because that means I'll be working on it again. But I think for us, it was just the reservoir, that leak around the port of the reservoir manifold, and that we're good to go. So there you go. We could have taken that to a dealership or a auto repair shop, and we would have incurred all that cost of time and labor at today's rates, or a little DIY ourselves to help keep our daily driver classic truck on the road. So just say no to new vehicles and help keep your daily driver classic truck on the road with a little bit of DIY yourself. Hope you enjoyed that video. Hope it was helpful. Catch you in the next one. Bye. And stay tuned to see more from me, Earl with an E.